Here we go, chapter 17. The War of Cassius and Brutus. Brutus and Cassius, nominatives, sic, thus or so, Caesar, in the accusative, as if Tarquinium regem, as if, or just like King Tarquinius, de pollice, and in one text it's de pollice, regno videbantur. So if we just take this bit, Brutus and Cassius, it seemed, videbantur, that they wanted to depolicy or to kick out or drive out Caesar, our accusative, as if this accusative, King Tarquin, in his ablative from the regnum, from the kingdom, or from the throne. But libertatem, which is liberty, quam maxime, as much as possible, restitutem volunt. So, they wanted restitutem libertatem. They wanted to restore liberty, which they wanted greatly, quam maxime they wanted, but illo ipso parricido, in this very parricide or homicide or high treason, they themselves, they perdiderant, they destroyed this liberty. As we know, after the death of Caesar, there was huge wars, and then they just got an emperor. Igitur, so therefore, Cade perfecta, with the slaughter completed, in the ablative absolute, cum veterones Caesaris, when the veterans of Caesar, timorant, they feared, and nec in merito, not unmerited, or you might want to say, or well deserved, depending on how you want to take the negative context. So after the slaughter had been done, and they feared the veterans of Caesar, statum, immediately, a curia from the Senate House, they configuranted, which means they fled into the Capitolum. Nec illis, this is dative or ablative plural, ad ultionem dierat animus. So neither were they, dierat, lacking in animus, which is like a spirit or courage, and this ad is for the purpose, for revenge. And so this illus would be the veterans, which are now not lacking in courage. But aducam non-dum habebam. It's just the imperfect version of it, but they had not yet, non-dum means not yet, but they had not yet got a leader, aducam. Okay, igitur, so therefore, cum, when apparet, when it was apparent, you might want to say that's an imperfect subjunctive from the cum, quae strag, so quae is relative, so which strags, this is havoc or disturbance or the problem anyway. What strags were imminent republica, republica's female, one's fifth, one's a first. So what was the problem which was threatening the republic, and when it was apparent, ultio, revenge, was displicit, it was displeasing. In this nice little clause, cum cades probata, while, or when, the slaughter probata was approved. So the murder they seem to be approving of. You might want to take this cum as an although this murder was approved of. Igitur again, therefore, Ciceronis concilis, by the planning or council of Cicero, that's in the genitive, an abolitione decreta. So this is an amnesty was decreed basically. This looks like it's fine in the ablative. So in this decree, with Cicero's authorship, tamen yet, or nevertheless, not to, there's the nay in the negative, that they should strike to the public doloris oculis, well, the eyes plural, and this is the grieving public, or so however we want to put that together. So they didn't want to strike the eyes of the grieving public too much because they were mourning. In the provinces, provincias, in with the accusative, by illo ipsi quum acciderat, which by illo ipsi, by him himself, whom occiderant, they had killed him, and it was given dates, so the provinces which were dates, which were given by him who they had killed himself, which were Syria and Macedonia, concesseranted to them. They concesserated, they took themselves to these provinces. So I'll have a quick daily dictionary. Back for strags, female third declension, havoc, confused state, massacre, slaughter, cutting down or overthrow. Top 2,000 words of Latin. Anyway, sic. So thus or so, vindicta, this would be the revenge that they would have of Caesar. was dilata, vindicta dilata. Dilata means postponed. It would be a past passive or an adjective. Podius quam, rather than oppressor. So rather than being overcome, or as the Load puts, stifled, that they just postponed it. Igator for like the fourth time. So therefore, yam, now we're back into the present. Ordinata magus ut poterup quam ut debant inter triumviros republic. So the republic was ordered or arranged more as it was able to than as it should have been. Debant just means what ought to have happened amongst the triumvirates. So these three had arranged the republic or distributed the power. Relicto ad urbis praesidium lepido, so ablative absolute relicto lepido. Lepidus was left behind as a presidium to the city, as a guard or a garrison for the city. Sometimes they use datives, but he's just using accusative here. Caesar, with Antonius, cum the preposition. He succingated, or Caesar's the singular, taking this singular, and they've used the preposition to stat him on, so they didn't make a plural of it. So he put on his belt that has a sword in it. That's what succinga means. It puts on your belt. Towards Cassius and Brutus. Illi, they, comparatus in genibus copius, that's the end of those ablative episodes, having procured, comparibus is procured, ingentius is huge, copius means forces. So they having procured huge forces, eadem illam, here in the accusative, eadem means the same as illam, that which, here's the which, quae, fatalis gnaeos Pompeius fuit. Okay, so which fuit had been fatal, and then we use the dative here, to Pompeius. So, insederet harenum. So the harenum is just a patch of like sand or soil. In the eadem goes with arena. In this same soil they insiderate, which means they settled down in the same ground at which had been fatal to Pompey. Sed nec tum imminentia destinae claris signa laterunt. Nice short sentence. But neither. So seds, but neither. Tum was then. Immanentia signa would be going together. But these were huge signs, were not laterunt, laying hidden, of the destinate claris, of this the destined disaster, basically. So, but then these huge signs of this great disaster were not lying hidden. Okay, nam, for, et, also, signis insedit eximon. Okay, and then it goes out again. So the eximon would be a swarm of bees or a hive of bees. They inset it, they sat down. Sometimes Cygnus is statues. This here would be the standards which the army carries. And adversa cadaverum, this looks genitive. Pabulo volucres. Volucres are flying things. So these would be birds. Pabulo, which have food or which they feed on cadavers. So birds that pabulate, they eat on cadavers in adverse situations, I guess. The castra, quasi yam sua circumvolument. Volument means flying, circum means around. So they were flying around the castra, the camp, as if it was yam sua, as if it was now already theirs. So there hadn't been a battle, but the birds were gathering to eat the corpses, as if they were already theirs. Et in Actium, and in the columns of troops, Prodeuntibus obvious Ethiopius. Okay, so this would be the nominative. There was an Ethiopian, obvious, which means he went out to meet. Ethiopians met the Prodeuntius. This would be dative, plural. For those who are going forwards, pro is forwards, and untians means walking or marching in their columns. An Ethiopian met them, which was nimus aperte ferale signum fuit. Fuit means was. So this was too much of an open signum, sign, which is neuter, and ferale, this means a deadly, this was a deadly sign. Ferale is neuter with the signum. Ipsique Bruto. And so this is Brutus in the, I guess it's ablative, so it's happened in the past, and so this had happened to Brutus himself, per noctem, through the night, cum, when, in lato lumini, having brought in his lantern, ex more aliquas secum agiterant, which from custom, ex more, secum means with him, aliquar basically doesn't mean much here. It just says, which he usually has with him. You could say in agitar it's just a movement. So he had this lantern with him through the night, which he normally did. And atra quaedam imago. Okay, so the quaedam is a certain atra imago. So there's a certain black image. It obtulid, which means offered. Tulids are irregular, goes ferro tuli latus or something. So just offered itself. It offered say itself. And quae esset interrogo. And it asked, actually esset means it had asked, interroga. And when asked interroga what it was, which esset, and so Brutus must have asked what this image was. He said, inquitted, he said, tuus malus genius. I am your evil genius, basically, your spirit or something. And suboculus mirantis evenuit. And it vanished from under his oculus, under his eyes, which were mirantis, which were wondering or amazed. Pare in meliora praesagio in Caesaris castris omnia aves victimae qui promisserant. So pare means equally, into beta presagio. These are presagements of a foretelling of the future. So in the camp of Caesar, in castris is in the ablative, of Caesar the genitive. Everything was equally going on, but aves, which are birds, and the victims, these are things sacrificed, they promisserant. They promised melior, they promised better presages. Said nihil, but nothing. Praesentius was more, or rather more, praesentient. It's a comparative, so nothing showed was more better omen, illy, probably to him, or to the circumstances. Quod, because Caesaris medicus, so this is the medicus as a doctor, but the doctor of Caesar, admonitus es, he was admonished or advised, somnio, in a dream, ablative, that Caesar, again, now he's the nominative, he should exceederet castris, from the camp. Ex means out of, cedo is just, you should walk out or take to his feet or just go out. Quibus capi in minibant, which it was eminent to be captured. Capi is passive infinitive of to be captured. Eki nam qui commissa. And for, when the battle was committed in the ablative, akis is the battle lines and committed means they come together. Cum pare ador aliquandu dimicatum foret. Just means the dimicatum, which was the fight, was aliquandu for a long time. Cum pare. It was with equal ardor. Ardor was like burning or enthusiasm. So the fighting had been commissioned and been going on for a long time with equal ardor. And quamvis, and though, or although, the dukes, the generals, indi then, presentes adessent, they were, ad sum means at hand, they were there, their presence was there, they were actually there, these leaders were here. Though hinc, in a certain place, it's an adverb, alterum corpus agritudo, so one was in sickness of body, so one was sick, and illum, hic and illum are correlatives, so the other one, metus, et ignavia, so in our fear and cowardice had subduxisset, so on one side you had two generals present, and the other had one who was sick and another one who wasn't there because out of fear or cowardice, which would be Antonius or something. Tamen, nevertheless, Starbat, standing pro partibus invicta fortuna. So fortune or fate was standing invicta, unconquerable pro partibus. It's a pretty simple thing. It's equal for parts, you might want to say for now. Both, because we have et, both of the revenger and he who was avenging, vindicabator. So this is how this little section goes together. So that the exitus proli docuit. The exitus means the end or the outcome, prolium of the battle. Fortune here was teaching or instructing. Primum, so first, Adio anceps fuit ut. Adio ut. So first, fuit, it was in anceps, which means two-headed, or it was going either way. Adio ut, to such an extent that par ultram qui discrim, the discrimen, the crisis or turning point, was par, means the same or equal, ultram to both sides. And then captus sint hinc Caesaris castra. So then was the camp of Caesar here was captured, basically, and in the then of Cassius. Sed quanto efficiacior est fortuna quam virtus! Exclamation point. So efficiacior is a comparative, so you can just usually use rather there. But how much more efficiator, how powerful is fortune than virtue or valor? So quam means then. Et quam. Virum est. Et quam. And how virumus, how true is, quod what, moriens, he's dying in the nominative participle, he flavit, we breathed out when he was dying, not in re, not in reality or not in truth, but in verbo tantum only, as virtutem. Now this saying would be of Brutus, and how true is it, he said when he was breathing out his last dying, that virtue or valor was not in reality but in word only. Victoriam illi prolio error dedit. Error would be the nominative, so error, dedit, gave, Victoria, in this battle probably, that's probably what it means. Cassius, nominative, inclinato corno suorum, corno is the wing, with the wing, suorum of his men, inclinato, which meant giving way, so inclinato corno, it would be ablative absolute. So Cassius, with the wing of his men failing, basically, cum captus Caesaris castris, when the captured camp of Caesar, rapido quickly, impetu, basically means an attack, recipiente se equites viderit. Okay, so Cassius, when his wing was giving way, he saw those recipienting themselves, coming back. He saw his knights coming back with a quick march or quick attack after having captured the camp of Caesar. There's a knight, so they'll be on horses. So arbitras, thinking fugere, so Cassius was arbitrating that they were fleeing, fugureing, and he evaded it into a tumulum, onto a little hillock. So he took himself away to a hill. This was the error. His knights were returning from capturing Caesar's camp, but he thought they were fleeing. Inde, so then, polvere and strepitu, in the dust and in the den, etiam nocte vicine, so night was in the vicinity, or night was coming close, I'd say. Eximentibus geste re sensum, so he was sensing the geste re, how the circumstances of the matter had gone. Geste is the ax. Eximentum means was leaving, basically. That's a participle. So probably the vision was leaving from night coming in close. And cum speculator, when a scout or someone who looks, a spy, quoque also, in id missus, sent out in an investigation into this with the neuter, and he was tardy, so he was rather slow in nuntiareting, in announcing what was going on. Transactum de partibus ratus. Ratus against past passive means he was thinking. Transactum de partibus, things were going away from his side. And one, unai, ex proximus, one from his nearby people, he praebuited, he offered, he's put his head in this gerund, or ferendum. So he's going to get his head cut off. We're nearly done with this long part. Brutus, cum in Cassio, when in Cassius, even sum animum perdicit, even his animum, his courage he had lost, perdicit means lost, or the lobe has he'd lost a second self. I don't really see that there. Ne quid, not that anything, ex constitute fide resignat. So lest anything he should resign basically from his constituted, from the agreed pact, the fide. So he should, in case he wouldn't do something of which had been decided previously before the battle. Thus enim non super esse bello convenerat. So convenerat's impersonal, means it had been agreed upon, and for thus ita, that he neither should survive super esse the war himself, quoque also unai committum suorum, one from his companions, his companions, suorum is his own. He praebuited, he offered his latus, which is a nute, offered his side to one of his people for this gerendum, confodiendum, so it would be dug out with a knife or a sword, possibly, so it would be cut into. Qui, who, se pentissimos ac fortissimos viros, the most wise and most brave men in the accusative plural, non merita, cannot be cannot be amazed that these most wise and most brave men ad ultimum non sue menibus usos. They would use ad ultimum to this last act. Why would they not use sue menibus, their own hands, to do this? Nisi, unless you accept hoc quoque this also ex persuasione sectae fuit, unless this was fuit from the persuasion of their sect, which would be their belief, philosophy, or religious, ne manus violeret, they should not violate with their hands, they shouldn't take their own lives, I'm guessing it's saying. Said in emoliation, this is an ablative, of the most bravest against superlative, and the most pious, in amarum judice suo. So, in this death, you might want to say, you can Google it for yourself. They want to, in their own judgment, judicio suo, of their minds, of these most bravest and pious men, uterentor, this is a deponent, they would use, it takes the ablative, another scellere for this crime or this deed.